I think anybody who tries to go home down West Market Street at, 5 o'clock and hits that little crunch right there at Highland Square either finds a different way to go if they're really, the most important thing is for them to get past that quickly, or, they see that as an area where people are slowing down. When they slow down, they also stop and pull over and go to those stores. So I think that's actually a good thing for us.
Okay, all right, thank you.
It sure is a sweet deal, some of the amenities that I think that any new company would want. Could you speak a little bit? I know currently we have a soft kind of 15-year agreement, so to speak, with B&W. What other parts and pieces are we waiting on, the county and?
So there are definitely partners in this project. B&W has is entered into a 15-year lease with IRG, but that lease is contingent upon all the partners getting their parts done. So, for instance, we already have an agreement with IRG, as Mr. Fusco pointed out several years ago, to help everything at that east end, become redeveloped. There's almost 1 million square feet there. So one of the things that's already in place is a tax increment financing. We're doing this relocation grant from the city of Akron. The county has some activities that they're doing. Jobs Ohio has some things that they're doing. As each one of these components becomes approved, it sort of then locks the whole thing in together. So I'd say, I think this is a good deal. I can't imagine any of these groups not approving it, so I think it's pretty much in the bag at this point.
Yeah, it looks like we have the biggest kind of, not the really biggest piece, but I think the biggest incentivized piece. When do we think that all these pieces will come together and we'll start that? Do we anticipate the?
I apologize. I just really did not look at, the timelines of the other entities, but I imagine by the end of the year, they should all be done. I'm pretty much guessing that, we have our last council meeting next Monday. I'm going to guess the other ones are probably doing the same thing, on the same timeline that we are, but I don't have the exact dates.
Thank you. Any more questions from committee? Any questions from any other council members?
There's one over there.
Oh, sorry. Councilwoman Keith?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Number one, Councilman Fusco mentioned a return on our investment. And I feel for Barberton, but I believe what we are doing by looking and splitting the payroll tries to soften what has happened, that we certainly didn't reach out to cause this to happen. They had a need and we were there. And so to our benefit, I believe that we are doing what we can to try to soften. So number one, I want to commend us on doing that. And the second thing is, at the end of 7 years, will all of the payroll tax be coming our way then? Okay, so just for the first 7 years, it will be divided accordingly already.
After 7 years, we keep 100% of it.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much.
And so actually, after 5 years, we'll finish the payments to Barberton.
Yes.
But our agreement with B&W goes the 7 years. So after 5 years at 50, 40, 20, and 10%, we become whole again, and then through the 7 years with Babcock and Wilcox, correct?
Yes,
Thank you.
Exactly.
Is there any other questions from the committee? Mrs. Swirsky.
Just a quick comment. We're lucky we have Adele Roth working for us. This is a big deal, and congratulations.
It was really very much of a team effort. So, and that's kind of nice.
Other team members.
Yeah, lots of team members.
Gracious Ms. Roth.
Lots of team members.
So what's your desire, Mr. Dale?
Actually, if you could, since next week is the last one, if you could put it on consent agenda, I appreciate that. Also, it's something that Mrs. Keith mentioned, that just so that you know, we did not go seeking this from Barberton, and at Mayor Horgan, who initially met with the company and tried to work things out. His first question to them was, isn't there something you can do to stay in Barberton? Because, you know, we would hate to see our neighbor hurt, and that just was not possible, so.
Yeah, I think we've talked about those agreements around the region, that we don't hurt one another, and that we're very mindful to do that. And I think by sharing the tax revenue, but at some point we do have to have a sunshine on it. 5 years seems most appropriate. So I too agree that we shouldn't hurt each other in the region. But it doesn't seem like this is something that we sought out, but in fact, that it found its way. You know, there's an old saying, I think Frederick Douglass says, stay ready so you don't have to get ready. And we were ready, and we could provide what they need, so I'm grateful for that. Can I get a motion for consent agenda?
Motion for consent.
Can I get a second? Second. All in favor? Aye. Is there anything else to come before the Economic Development Committee? If not, we're adjourned. Thank you.
Do we have another one?
But you were watching me? So was
Ready.
I. She had to go over there.
I'd like to call the Budget and Finance meeting to order. We are just missing off of our committee, Councilman Freeman. Okay, and is there a motion to accept the minutes from the last meeting? I have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing and seeing none. The minutes pass. And I'm going to take time on our old agenda, and I will go in. Is there let me see, incorrected. I think on everything. No, there's one. Yeah. Yep. Okay. And then we will go to what we have on our new agenda. Okay. I was there. Okay. We have an ordinance. Ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into a contract or contracts with United Way of Summit County to implement the 2018 Financial Empowerment Center implementation grant from the cities for a financial empowerment fund and declaring an emergency.
Hello, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Again, this is funding. Back in June, Council approved the City of Akron applying for and accepting an implementation grant through the Cities for Financial Empowerment Fund.
Is your mic on?
Yes.
Okay.
I will just move, I'll move
Oh,
closer.
there you go.
Does that help?
That
Sorry.
does. Thank you so much, Melinda.
So back in June, we applied for, again, through the Cities for Financial Empowerment and Implementation Grant to support, again, implementation of the Financial Empowerment Center here in Kenmore. So essentially, we already have legislation passed by council allowing us to apply for and accept the grant funding. This particular legislation is specific to us now passing that funding through to our service provider, the United Way of Summit County. So again, this would just allow our law department to create the contract to pass those funds to the United Way.
So very clean cut, exactly what we've already talked about. I will tell you that I had the opportunity to take a workshop here that they offered, and I just wanted to know how they were presenting what they had to present, and I didn't want to take anyone's spot. But I'm going to tell you, I think we should all applaud the partnership that we have because of all of the things we can do for our residents. This can be such to help people in situations that actually we've all been involved in. I think through trial and error and making mistakes, we claw our way out of things. But I was there for, I think, over an hour at the workshop, and I learned so much, and I thought, well, I knew pretty much about financing and credit cards and things like that. But I'm going to highly recommend to my council members that are sitting here, if you have the opportunity to have them come and speak at your ward meetings, you will not be disappointed. And to me, it's one of those things that is tangible, that is going to be so helpful to our residents, no matter what economic position they are in. They're going to learn something that they can take forward that I think will make them more financially savvy. So I just have to applaud that we took this opportunity to become a partner with United Way and to support them as they push this out, because it's a gift that'll keep on giving, I believe. So any council members here have comments? Councilwoman Amobian.
What I'd like to know, is there a report forthcoming in terms of the people that are utilizing the program? I'm just curious as to how many people are using it from different parts of the city as well.
We can definitely get you an update. One of the things they've been working on, and honestly, we're of one of about a dozen cities who received this funding to start up, 10 cities to receive startup funding to really get these centers going. Akron's actually way ahead of the curve. We seem to be the first in that bunch. So they were we were going a couple months before we even got kind of the full software and platform set up to import all that data. But this is very big on data, and it's very data-driven. One of the reasons it tends to be a very successful model. So now that they've been working with that software, I believe since August, we're starting to get some decent data and reporting out. So we're talking to United Way about what that looks like, if there's something quarterly. I fully want to get something prepared for mayor's state of the city as well, to report out to the city in the first 6 months what this is really looking like for people. But we want to applaud United Way. They've done a great job of implementing. They've really taken it and run with it. As of right now, they have a couple-week wait to even get in. They've been so successful. Their retention rate's also pretty darn high. So we'll figure out what reporting looks like now that we're kind of getting into a system that can really house and export this data into all types of formats. So we definitely love to look to do that, because I think it's important for everybody to see the proof of concept here.
Sure. And particularly the income breakdown. It'd be nice to
Absolutely.
see that people that are struggling are really
Yeah, and
seeking-
they can break it down by how much we've saved Akron residents, how much we've reduced debt. I mean, all those are going to be available, and by income, by zip code. So it's going to be really, really valuable data for us to
Okay.
use, and I'm sure we can use it across the board in other instances.
Thank you.
Annie, when you get that report, would you make sure that all of council gets that, not just the committee here?
Oh,
but that-
absolutely.
Yeah, I would really appreciate that, so that we all have it. And that'll help us keep promoting it, even though there's a couple-week, wait on to get this counseling, because most of the counseling is done one-on-one, which is phenomenal, and it's free. And it isn't, and I think the misconception that I've had with some of my residents was, this isn't just for Kenmore. Just because the site right now is Kenmore, they will become more mobile to be able to be elsewhere. But, these one-on-one counseling sessions do take place
Yeah,
there.
absolutely. For Summit County and beyond, there's
Yeah.
really no borders.
It's just wonderful. Anyone else on the committee have questions? Okay, I think we have applauded a lot now. What is your pleasure?
Consent is just fine.
Consent? Do I have a motion for consent? I had a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
No, thank you. Okay, thank you so much. Okay, our second item and our last item to come before us today is an ordinance repealing and replacing ordinance number 316-2017, creating, establishing, and recognizing departments, offices, bureaus, divisions, and positions in the classified service of the City of Akron, requiring that only budgeted, funded positions be filled and declaring an emergency. And I'm going to imagine that you are going to expound on this. Is
Yes,
that
I
correct?
will, Madam Chair, to the council. Yes, this revisions of the omnibus ordinance is the product of about a year's worth of work between the HR department, the operating departments and divisions, and it reflects decisions of the Civil Service Commission. Just to kind of bring a couple things to your attention and highlights, I'll highlight my own department by saying that we're going to create a couple of new positions. 19, the first one is the safety supervisor position. It is responsible for the development and implementation of organizational development and standardizing the safety programs in the city of Akron. Historically, we have done this through contract, and we found that we could save the city a little bit of money by bringing a person in-house who would develop standardized safety and occupational safety programs. The second one is the diversity and training manager. We are going to bring that position into HR to sort of standardize and make a management position out of training, diversity, and the EEO programs that we have in the city of Akron. So it's the continued development of the HR department.
That's terrific. And you're only speaking on your department. However, we know that other departments
Right.
will be creating other things. Okay.
Absolutely.
Anything else? I'm sorry.
No, I think if you have any questions about the document I gave you, I'll be happy to answer them. But most of it, other than the two positions that I just named, are sort of ministerial in action. It's changing job titles, moving things around from division to division, that sort of stuff.
Once again, cleaning up things a little bit. correct?
Absolutely.
Okay, we're glad to have your division in there. Any questions from, okay, Councilwoman Amobian?
I'm assuming that you use those two positions just to demonstrate what you're doing here?
Absolutely.
Oh, okay.
Absolutely.
Because I see all these other things. And I
Yes.
see, okay, thank you.
Anyone else on the committee? Are there any questions from members of council that are in the chambers? Okay, hearing and seeing none, what is your pleasure?
Consent.
Consent agenda, do I have a motion for consent? I have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing and seeing none, this will be placed on the consent agenda. Is there anything else to come before this committee? Okay. If not, then we are adjourned.